Pam Bondi wanted Gabbard there on site at the Fulton County Elections Office.
She took a lot of heat 2 days ago because she went in at Pam's insistence. She went in and she looked at votes that want to be checked out from Georgia.
While the
democracy is under attack, but not in the way you might think. While Republicans claim they're fighting to protect election integrity, what's really happening is the most coordinated assault on voting rights America has seen in generations. And it's all happening right now in 2026 as we approach the crucial midterm elections. This isn't conspiracy theory. This isn't partisan spin. This is documented fact backed by court records, FBI affidavits, and the testimonies of election officials across the political spectrum. Welcome to the truth about America's election crisis. On February 11th, 2026, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives passed what they're calling the Save America Act by a razor-thin margin of 218 to 213. The legislation sounds patriotic enough, right? The Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. Who could be against safeguarding elections? But here's what this bill actually does. The Save America Act mandates that every American must present documentary proof of citizenship, like a U.S. passport or birth certificate, just to register to vote. Not just show up with an ID, not just prove who you are. You need to produce physical documentation proving you were born in America. Now let's talk about who this really affects. According to research from the Brennan Center for Justice and the University of Maryland, an estimated 21 million Americans don't have citizenship documents readily available. Another 2.6 million Americans lack any form of government-issued photo ID. But here's where it gets particularly insidious. Millions of married women who changed their names after marriage and didn't update their birth certificates to match would suddenly find themselves unable to vote. Think about that. You get married, you take your spouse's name, you've been voting for decades with your driver's license, but now you need to track down your original birth certificate, pay fees for certified copies, potentially hire lawyers to prove the name change is legitimate, all just to exercise your constitutional right to vote. This isn't about security, this is about suppression. President Trump has been pushing a particularly brazen falsehood to justify these restrictions. Listen to what he said at a recent press conference where we're the only country in the world that has mail-in ballots. The way we do this is unbelievable. It guarantees cheating. The only country in the world, that's not just wrong. It's spectacularly, verifiably false. According to the International Institute for Democracy and Election Assistance, 34 countries and territories worldwide allow postal or mail-in voting. Australia has had mail-in voting for over a century. Every single Canadian is eligible to vote by mail. These aren't banana republics. These are stable Western democracies that Trump himself has praised. But facts don't matter when you're building a narrative. Trump's own Attorney General, William Barr, investigated these claims after the 2020 election and found no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Dozens of lawsuits were filed, more than 60 court cases across multiple states. Recounts were conducted, audits were performed, and every single time the results were the same. The 2020 election was secure, legitimate, and accurate. So why are we still talking about this in 2026? Here's where things take a truly disturbing turn. On January 28, 2026, the FBI executed a search warrant at the Fulton County election hub near Atlanta, Georgia. They seized more than 650 boxes of ballots and election materials from the 2020 election, materials that are now more than 5 years old. Let that sink in. While crime is happening across America right now, the FBI dedicated massive resources to reinvestigating an election that has been audited, recounted, and certified multiple times. But wait, it gets worse. An NPR investigation into the unsealed FBI affidavit reveals something shocking. The investigation was initiated by Kurt Olsen, a Trump-appointed Director of Election Security and Integrity. Who is Kurt Olsen? He's not just some random government official. Kurt Olsen played an integral role in Trump's failed efforts to overturn the 2020 election. He was involved in fake elector plots. He was sanctioned in federal court in Arizona for making false claims. In Georgia, his legal challenges to voting machines failed spectacularly. And now, this discredited election denier is running investigations into election integrity. The fox isn't just guarding the hen house. The fox is investigating whether the hens properly counted their own eggs 5 years ago. Here's what makes the Fulton County raid even more egregious. The FBI affidavit written by Special Agent Hugh Raymond Evans cited 5 alleged deficiencies or defects in Fulton County's 2020 election: missing ballot images, ballots scanned multiple times, inconsistent hand count audit results, improperly inserted ballots changing vote totals during recounts. Sounds damning, right? Except there's one massive problem. Every single one of these allegations had already been thoroughly investigated by Georgia state officials, including by Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, who famously refused Trump's pressure to find 11,180 votes. The Georgia investigations found that of these 5 claims, only one was even partially substantiated. Some ballot batches were accidentally scanned twice during a Trump-requested recount. But here's the crucial part that the FBI affidavit conveniently omitted. The state investigation concluded, and I quote directly, "These investigative findings do not affect the accuracy of the results of the 2020 general election in Fulton County, which were confirmed as accurate by both the risk-limiting audit and the recount." The FBI affidavit cherry-picked allegations while completely ignoring the conclusions that debunked them. That's not investigating, that's propaganda. State investigators also found that complaints about mismatched tallies fundamentally misunderstood what a risk-limiting audit is designed to do. It's meant to confirm the winner of the election, not produce an exact count of every single ballot. As the 2022 Georgia report stated, a precise count of over 5 million ballots by human beings in 159 jurisdictions is impossible. Humans counting will always produce errors. The difference in the Georgia count, 0.1053% in total votes cast, that's well within the expected variance for any large-scale hand count, and it's nowhere near enough to change the outcome. Remember that FBI raid in Fulton County? There was someone else there that day who had no business being present, Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence. The DNI is supposed to oversee intelligence operations related to national security threats, foreign espionage, terrorism, cyber warfare. What was she doing at a raid about 5-year-old ballots in a county election? It gets more disturbing. According to reports, Gabbard facilitated a phone call between President Trump and the FBI agents conducting the raid. Think about that. The President of the United States personally called FBI agents in the middle of an investigation into an election he lost. One U.S. official described the call as a pep rally or a coach giving an encouraging halftime speech to his players. That's not how law enforcement is supposed to work. That's how authoritarian regimes work. The FBI affidavit contains no evidence or suspicion of foreign election interference, which is what would actually justify DNI involvement. This was purely domestic political theater designed to keep Trump's 2020 election lies alive. Republicans constantly talk about voter fraud, so let's talk about it. A comprehensive study examined voter fraud cases from 2000 to 2014, covering more than 1 billion ballots cast across America. The result? They found 31 credible instances of impersonation voter fraud, 31 out of 1 billion. You're more likely to be struck by lightning. You're more likely to win the lottery. You're exponentially more likely to be killed by a vending machine than to encounter voter impersonation fraud. But Republicans say voter fraud is a crisis that requires restricting millions of Americans' voting rights. Want to know what is a crisis? Let me show you who's actually committing election fraud. 9 Michigan Republicans were charged with trying to keep Trump in power through fake elector schemes. Republican State Representative David Cole was booked on voter fraud charges. Republican lawmaker Austin Smith, who called Maricopa County's vote a national disgrace, was charged with forging petition signatures to get on the ballot. And then there's this gem reporter. Have you ever seen any voter fraud? Trump supporter. Yeah, me, I did it. Reporter, you committed voter fraud? What did you do? Trump supporter. Voted twice for Trump. Reporter, really? 4 years ago? Trump supporter, yes. Reporter, did you get in trouble? Trump supporter, yeah, I'm still on probation for it. You can't make this up. The party screaming about election integrity is the party whose members keep getting arrested for actual election crimes. The Trump administration's assault on democracy doesn't stop at the SAVE Act or FBI raids. The Department of Justice is now suing multiple states, including Nevada, Colorado, Hawaii, and Massachusetts, demanding they turn over complete unredacted voter registration files. The administration claims they need this data to enforce voter registration and access laws, but state officials are worried, and rightfully so, about privacy, especially after the DOJ released the names of Jeffrey Epstein's survivors in document dumps while redacting the names of Epstein's co-conspirators. Let me be crystal clear. This administration has given voters zero reason to trust them with sensitive personal information. They've shown they're willing to weaponize the FBI for political purposes. They've shown they'll selectively leak information, and they've shown they don't care about privacy when it's politically inconvenient. While all this is happening, the Republican National Committee has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to dramatically restrict mail-in voting nationwide. They're not just asking states to make voting harder, they're asking the Supreme Court to invalidate legally cast mail-in ballots, ballots that voters submitted in good faith following their state's laws. This isn't about election security. This is about rigging the game. When you can't win on ideas, you change the rules. When you can't persuade voters, you eliminate voters. Not every Republican is on board with this authoritarian drift. Brad Raffensperger, Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, who resisted Trump's 2020 pressure campaign, issued a scathing statement about the FBI's Fulton County raid. As Secretary of State, I've made Georgia the safest and most secure place to vote. Instead of wasting time and tax dollars trying to change the past with baseless and repackaged claims, let's focus our efforts on building a safer, more affordable future for all hardworking Georgians. Senator Lisa Murkowski announced she won't support the Save America Act, making passage in the Senate even more difficult. Even some Republican election officials are speaking out, warning that these efforts are damaging public trust and wasting taxpayer resources. But their voices are being drowned out by the MAGA movement's relentless attacks on democracy itself. We're now 9 months away from the 2026 midterm elections, and the groundwork is being laid for another round of election denial, voter suppression, and potential violence. Think about what we've covered. The Save America Act will disenfranchise millions of Americans, including married women, elderly citizens without passports, and low-income voters who can't afford document fees. The FBI is being weaponized to investigate debunked conspiracy theories about elections that happened more than 5 years ago. The investigation is led by a discredited election denier who helped organize fake elector plots. The president personally called FBI agents during an active political investigation. The DOJ is suing states to obtain complete voter files with no clear legitimate purpose. The Supreme Court is being asked to invalidate legally cast ballots. This isn't normal. This isn't partisan. This is a systematic attempt to undermine democratic elections in the United States of America. Here's what's most frustrating. Everyone knows this is happening. Republican officials who investigated these claims found nothing. Judges appointed by Republicans throughout the lawsuits. Trump's own attorney general said there was no fraud. The emperor has no clothes, but half the country is being told to praise his magnificent outfit. David Becker, a former Justice Department official now at the Center for Election Information and Research, called the FBI affidavit much weaker than I suspected. He said after more than 5 years, dozens of court cases, and over a year in total control of the federal government, this is all they've got? The answer, devastatingly, is yes, this is all they've got. Debunked theories, misleading affidavits, political theater, and yet it's working. A significant portion of Americans still believe the 2020 election was stolen, despite zero credible evidence. So, what can we do about this? First, understand what's happening. Share information with friends and family. Don't let lies go unchallenged. Second, contact your representatives. Tell them you support free and fair elections and that you oppose voter suppression disguised as election integrity. Third, help people in your community make sure they're registered and have the documents they'll need if the Save America Act becomes law. And finally, vote. Because despite all these obstacles, that's still the most powerful tool we have. To quote one of the Republican officials trying to stop these efforts, the way we do this is unbelievable. I couldn't agree more. What's unbelievable is that in 2026, we're fighting the same battles over voting rights that were supposedly settled decades ago. What's unbelievable is that a major political party is systematically working to make it harder for Americans to vote. What's unbelievable is that the party that claims to love the Constitution is shredding the very foundation of democratic participation. But here's what gives me hope. Truth has a way of breaking through. Lies eventually collapse under their own weight, and Americans, when they understand what's at stake, have historically risen to protect their democracy. The question is, will we do it again? The 2026 midterms aren't just another election. They're a referendum on whether America remains a democracy where every citizen's vote counts equally or becomes a place where power decides who gets to participate. The choice is ours. If you found this video valuable and want to support independent journalism that holds power accountable, please hit subscribe. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. We're now in an environment where this administration can pressure social media platforms to suppress critical coverage. My ability to reach you might disappear if tech billionaires decide my reporting is too inconvenient. That's why I'm asking you to sign up for my newsletter. It's a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. The link is right here on screen. It's free, but there's also a paid subscription option if you'd like to support independent media. Thank you for watching, for caring about democracy, and for being willing to face uncomfortable truths. See you in the next one.